Mr. Auditor General, we have spent quite a bit of time talking about younger workers and the younger workforce. I'd like to switch demographic gears here and talk about the 55 and over workforce. And not just because I'm now a member of the 55 and over workforce, but because in my district, I have a lot of constituents who are more mature workers, and of course across the Commonwealth, we have a great number of people that are part of the mature workforce. People are living longer. They're working longer. Some people are working longer because they choose to. Some people are working longer because they have no choice. But be that as it may, they may not have as many working days ahead of them as the younger generation, but they're still productive, and they're still an important part of Pennsylvania's workforce. And it seems that perhaps there's been a lack in helping these adults get the information and training needed to be qualified for the needs of today. What do you think, Mr. Auditor General, we can do to prepare these more mature individuals for the workforce, not just of today, but for tomorrow?
A couple things. First of all, as a society, we have a crisis in that demographic. We did a report on the cost of firearm deaths in Pennsylvania. Now, regardless of where people stand on the issue of firearm regulation, 2/3 of all firearm deaths in Pennsylvania are suicides. And it's mostly, again, not all, but mostly people in the demographic you're describing, because I think they are giving up hope. The opioid epidemic that this legislature and the administration have worked so well together on in a bipartisan way. Again, not saying that no young person has ever succumbed to drugs. You know, we all know that. But where that mostly has been a problem for our society is that demographic. For starters, I think we have to recognize why there's frustration. I mean, you've had this good career, you know, whatever it was that that individual was doing, and then when that job goes away, it is very difficult at the age of 51, 52, 53 to just recognize I need to start over. That is very hard. So part of this is, and not to be touchy-feely here, but there's got to be some mental health counseling that goes with when those transitions happen. Because when you've had a certain career for 22 years and you're thinking, I'm getting real close to getting my pension or my retirement, and then boom, that plant closes, it's emotionally devastating. And yeah, there's a handful that pick themselves up and move on, but there's a whole big chunk that get left behind, which leads to the opioid and the suicide, et cetera. Or some other work that they just don't find as meaningful. And they're just not, and we've all met people like that, right? We know them. They're just never the same again. So I think part of that is we have to help them on the mental health side of it. Two, I think then we have to have once, you know, we try to get them as right as possible. Look, and we all have our challenges, but get them as right as possible. I think we've got to be honest with them in the effort to try to help, which is certain jobs just aren't coming back. And using the skills that they have and how they can be retooled, maybe in a world of cybersecurity, for example. One of the things and again, easy for me to say, I'm not doing the hiring on this. But if I've got a security threat at my company and I have two options, and one of them is a very mature 52-year-old who's already raised a family, already had a stable career, if I can retool that person to work in cybersecurity, and that could be a really good employee that you know is going to be slugging away at it every single day. You know they're going to show up. You know they're going to do the right thing. You know they're going to care about doing the right job. And I think that's something that we need to do as well. So, but I think we've got to start with the mental health side of it. When those jobs go, I think we just have to recognize that that's devastating for that individual and for families and sometimes for that whole entire community, then working with them on the skills to try to meet the jobs that they have. And maybe some of this goes into, maybe there's some tax credits that we can help companies with to incentivize hiring people in that demographic as well. I mean, I'm open to other ideas, but I think those three things, I think, can go a long way.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think when a younger person loses a job, it perhaps isn't as much of a loss of identity as
Right.
when an older worker does or a more mature worker does.